The crowd gathered on the courthouse steps under the harsh midday sun did not expect to witness a mother turn her back on her own son so publicly, so completely, that it felt like the air itself went still. Cameras were rolling, neighbors were whispering, and at the center of it all stood a woman with silver-streaked hair and a rigid spine, announcing that she no longer recognized the man who shared her blood. Across from her, in worn boots and a leather vest faded by years of road dust, stood her son, a known Hell's Angel, absorbing the words without flinching, even as something inside him quietly broke. No one there could have imagined that this moment of rejection would ignite a chain of events that would end with an entire city stunned into silence. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us people are more than their worst labels, take a second to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Only Kindness. Your support keeps stories like this alive. His name was Marcus Vale, and long before the leather, the patches, and the roar of engines, he had been a quiet boy who grew up in a sunlit mansion on the edge of a coastal town. The house had tall white columns, wide windows that swallowed the daylight, and gardens that smelled of salt and roses. His mother, Eleanor Vale, had inherited that mansion from her parents, along with a reputation for refinement, charity luncheons, and strict expectations. Marcus's childhood was filled with piano lessons he hated, tailored clothes that never felt like his own, and a constant pressure to become someone polished and acceptable. His father had died young, leaving Eleanor to raise Marcus alone, and over time, love hardened into control. The more Marcus struggled to breathe under her expectations, the tighter she held on. By his late teens, Marcus discovered freedom in the most unexpected place, the open road. He befriended older bikers who passed through town, men who spoke little but lived honestly, who judged him not by his manners or pedigree but by whether he showed loyalty and courage. When he left home, it was not with a dramatic fight, but with a quiet decision to stop trying to be someone else. Over the years, that choice led him deeper into the biker world, until he wore the Hell's Angels patch with pride. To Eleanor, this was not just rebellion, it was humiliation. Her son had become everything her social circle whispered about in disapproval. The day she disowned him publicly was the day her own health finally failed. Eleanor's illness had progressed quickly, and as rumors spread, so did speculation about her estate. When Marcus arrived at the courthouse, summoned by a formal notice, he already knew what awaited him. Eleanor had chosen to make her final stance not in private, but before witnesses, making it clear that her son's life choices had severed any bond between them. Her words were sharp, measured, and devastating, declaring that Marcus would receive nothing but her disappointment. She turned away from him as if he were a stranger, leaving behind a silence heavier than anger. Eleanor passed away weeks later, in the bright clarity of a late summer morning. Contrary to what everyone expected, the legal documents revealed a twist no one saw coming. The mansion, along with its vast grounds, was left to Marcus after all, not as an act of reconciliation, but as a cold, final test. The will stipulated that he could not sell the property for a full year, nor transfer ownership, forcing him to decide what to do with a symbol of a life that had rejected him. The town buzzed with speculation. Some assumed he would trash the place out of spite. Others believed he would find a way around the conditions and cash out. Marcus himself stood alone in the echoing halls of the mansion, sunlight pouring through the windows, feeling like an intruder in his own past. The mansion during the daytime was almost painfully beautiful. Dust danced in the light, and every room carried memories he had buried. He wandered through corridors where his footsteps echoed, past portraits of ancestors who had built their lives on privilege and appearance. For days, he did nothing but sit on the front steps, watching the ocean in the distance, wrestling with resentment and grief. His mother's rejection still burned, but beneath it was something else, an understanding that her life, like his, had been shaped by fear of judgment. Slowly, an idea began to form, not from anger, but from a quiet resolve to turn pain into something that mattered. Marcus noticed things most people overlooked. He saw how many people in town struggled silently, veterans sleeping in cars along the highway, women escaping violence with nowhere to go, young men teetering on the edge of bad choices because no one had given them another path. He knew these people because he had been one of them, just with a different starting line. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled across the mansion's neglected gardens, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. Instead of selling the house after the year passed, he would give it a new purpose entirely. The transformation did not happen overnight. Marcus reached out to contacts who owed him favors, not for illegal work, but for labor, supplies, and connections. Bikers arrived in the mornings, engines rumbling softly as they parked along the drive, removing vests before stepping onto the property out of respect. They repaired roofs, replanted gardens, and repainted walls under the open sky. The mansion became a hive of activity, sunlight illuminating men and women working side by side. Rumors spread fast, but no one could quite believe what they were seeing. The feared Hell's Angel was turning a symbol of elitism into something else. By the end of the year, the mansion reopened, not as a private residence, but as a daytime rehabilitation and transition center called the Vale House. Its doors were open from sunrise to sunset, offering counseling, job training, legal assistance, and simply a safe place to exist without judgment. Marcus made one rule clear: no one would be asked about their past unless they wanted to share it. The focus was on what came next. He funded the operation not through crime, but by liquidating his own assets, selling his motorcycles one by one until only one remained. He slept in a small room off the main hall, content with less than he had ever known. The town was stunned. People who had once crossed the street to avoid Marcus now watched from sidewalks as individuals they had written off walked into the mansion and emerged changed. Mothers reunited with children in the gardens. Veterans found work through connections Marcus helped arrange. Even local officials, initially suspicious, were forced to acknowledge the results. The mansion, bathed in daylight each day, had become a place of healing, not because of wealth, but because of intention. What made the story even more powerful was that Marcus never spoke publicly about his mother. He did not condemn her or rewrite her memory. Instead, he placed a small plaque in the entrance hall, dedicating the house to second chances and quiet redemption. Those who knew Eleanor best began to wonder if, in some distant way, this had been what she hoped he would do when she left him that impossible test. Perhaps the mansion was never meant to keep him tied to the past, but to see what kind of man he truly was. As months passed, Marcus aged in a way that had nothing to do with years. His face softened, his movements slowed, and the anger that once fueled him faded into something steadier. One bright afternoon, a local newspaper published a story about the Vale House, and it went viral. Donations poured in, volunteers signed up, people from neighboring towns came to see for themselves. The same steps where Eleanor had disowned her son now hosted community gatherings, filled with laughter and sunlight. The irony was not lost on anyone. Just before the ending of this story, I want to ask you something important. If this journey has moved you even a little, take a moment to comment below with the words "second chances matter." It helps this message reach more hearts than you might imagine. Marcus never asked for forgiveness, and he never waited for approval. He understood that not every wound needed to be reopened to heal. On the anniversary of his mother's passing, he stood alone in the garden at midday, sunlight warming his face, and felt a sense of peace he had never known. He had taken rejection and transformed it into purpose. He had turned a mansion built on appearances into a sanctuary built on compassion. If this story touched your heart, if it made you feel something real, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and engage with us here on Only Kindness. Your support tells the world that even the most unexpected people can choose kindness, and that sometimes the most powerful inheritance is not wealth, but the chance to do good with what we've been given.